Have you ever wondered why humanity is obsessed with binary tales of good versus evil? From biblical heroes such as David's defeat of Goliath, to contemporary champions such as Luke Skywalker, overcoming the forces of evil, and even Harry Potter, archetypal underdog and champion of the underclass who selflessly fights for what is considered right. This concept is not restricted to adults. It is also children, whose minds have been inculcated with the epic fairy tales of outlandish beasts and monsters that must be overcome if sanity and order are to prevail. However, their universal theme of good versus evil is too simplistic, but perhaps it equates to just doing what is right. Ladies and gentlemen, I suggest that this concept underpins the very notion of the Great Divide, doing what is right as opposed to doing what is wrong, or, just as destructive, doing nothing. Humanity's obsession with narratives, however fictitious, underscore our community's cornerstone, that for every wrong, there must be a right. That although wrongs are, and unfortunately, committed, a balanced society must attempt to correct these moral corruptions with acts of kindness, passion, and goodwill. But therein lies a problem. On whom does the onus lie to balance the ledger? Equally importantly, how does one know what is right? Various agencies have different agendas, and despite their differences in archetypes of moral behaviour, there is a real sense of nation, ostensibly to teach us what is right, yet often blatantly hypocritical. Indoctrination. It is an ugly term, suggestive of control, manipulation, and mental oppression. Nevertheless, a practice regularly performed by governments and their agencies, educational institutions, parents, peer groups, and the media. The nation's watchdog for detecting alleged breaches of community, such as fabrications of the truth, discrepancies, unpatriotic activities, but most importantly, what is right for their communities. However, what is considered right to some is different to others, because we have all been brought up and been influenced by different levels of indoctrination and in different contexts. This level of divide can be seen through the community's response to the plight of homeless people, refugee status of asylum seekers, the efficiency and equity of the legal system, spiralling levels of domestic violence, child protection, drug and alcohol abuse, and dozens of other important community issues. However, I would like to focus on two universal issues that highlight this great divide: those who have, as opposed to those who do not. Portrayed as an increasingly progressive society, Australia does not pass distinctions. However, this facade is embarrassingly transparent. There have always been poor people, but a poignant example of this class divide can be portrayed through the 2000 Sydney Olympic Games. And, whilst it was both commercially and jingoistically successful, it highlighted the plight of the plethora of the homeless, of whom many needed to be relocated because of the negative connotations associated with those living on the streets. This is Australia, the lucky country, where everyone is given a fair go and treated equally. Robin Hood allegedly stole from the rich to give to the poor. Why? Because they did not have adequate food to eat, nor did they have decent housing. It was a clear case of the haves versus the have-nots. However, the New South Wales Australian government to remove these offenders to less obvious locations, thus presenting visitors with a lie. What was the right thing to do, and by whom? The government agenda was to promote the Olympics and Australia in a positive light. Thus, their spin on their part was to temporarily assist the homeless with better facilities and housing. Unfortunately, the Australian community has now left this ongoing problem to modern-day Davids, Harry Potters, and such as Mission Australia, Wesley Mission, and St Vincent de Paul. Clearly, knowing what is right should be easy. Doing what is right, not so clear. The government's stance on problem gambling is contentious. Firstly, what is the right thing? This all depends on the current agenda and the community's attention and response to the perceived problem. The government is insistent in that they wish to help people with problems with gambling. However, this is not the case. They do advocate counsellors, advertise on television, and place warning signs above poker machines advising members of the public to seek help if they have an addiction to gambling. Unfortunately, it then seems somewhat hypocritical for the incumbent Premier of New South Wales, Barry O'Farrell, to publicly agree in building yet another casino in the very heart of Sydney. Again, the great divide that pits those with and those without clearly targets those without, the punters with addictions, the poorer members of our community. And it doesn't stop here. The Australian community are quite ambivalent. As I said before, doing nothing can be just as destructive as doing the wrong thing initially. The Great Divide is a blurred line, with socio-cultural elements, the community's acceptance and tolerance, and at times hypocrisy, all contributing towards the ever-widening chalk line that delineates those with and those without. But despite all misgivings, there is a certain thing that can somewhat erase this chalk stain, and that is by doing the moral thing. Look at present leaders of our community. Aung San Suu Kyi, leader of the National League for Democracy of Burma, recently a country ruled by a corrupt and oppressive military junta. She ironically sacrificed her freedom so that others could become free. Nelson Mandela, black South African president who was opposed and jailed for up to 27 years for his beliefs, who spoke out against discrimination and oppression under South African apartheid rule. These two leaders are just two prime examples of people who've done the moral thing. While the Great Divide continues to be a social and cultural chasm that separates society, humanity must define what is right, act on their collective consciences, and critique moral standards.